So, I didn't do a reading or I didn't attempt one for the full moon. I did, but I don't usually do that. I feel like I want to do more like the new moon stuff. It just ties in with the North Node in Leo for me. It just, I feel like new things. It's in my first house, so I don't know. I'm just drawn to that more. Full moon is great. It's just that I don't feel drawn to it. It's full moon is something you achieve and you come to completion, right? That's the way I understand it. So, as you go through the whole thing with astrology, you learn as you go, and that's what I prefer doing it that way. Yeah, so it's fun. It's more fun that way. Funner, except for funner. That's from House Bunny. I want to do a post on that way. It's like one of my favorite movies. I'm gonna watch it again. It's very beautiful. It's being stupid is great because it means you're not stupid. It's that gift of like innocence. It's just like yeah. So in any case, it's actually very humiliating as well. Humbling. Sorry, humiliating. Yeah, in a good way, but humbling for sure. Because I noticed that when I look back into my chart, it was like I have hubris is one of the asteroids conjunct my the sun. So it's like, okay, that explains it. I know what that means. Going through a bunch of moments in life where I thought I was better than everybody else, or at least worse than everybody else. A lot of it stems from resentment. You don't want that because it's poisonous and it's toxic. But something else today that I kind of wanted to add, speaking of poisonous and toxic and all that stuff, which is going to be like, I'm going to add a bit of the fixed star Hyedum today. So we'll see where we get with that one. I kind of want to comb my hair, but you know what, whatever. Okay. So, part of my thingy here, but okay, I'm going to take away, I don't know if that was a little too loud, but whatever. Okay, so I'm doing this in like, what is this right now? 9:24 in the evening at my time. So it's already morning, early morning in Greenwich, where I drew up this chart. So for those who are familiar with their moon and what the moon represents, being that in Pisces is going to be a new moon in Pisces. According to this one, it was, I don't know what that is, but it's this is dated March 10. Okay, so March 10, and it's very much like in a soft sign. Time for not only like closing in, but kind of stepping away and being more reflective, which kind of ties in a lot with the moon itself. It's very reflective. It's tied to Cancer, which is water. But it's also about, it's similar to Artemis and Diana, where it's about being certain about one's own instinct and being trusting with that sort of like, it's the huntress and going, not being a slave to one's emotions, especially with moon in Pisces. I know people who moon in Pisces. I actually know two specific people, and they tend to be quite like, they kind of step away a lot of times. They tend to be, this is I wouldn't say the ultimate, but like these individuals have that sort of aloofness about them, but it's not like aloof in a way where it's like they're not present. It's just more they need to process a lot of information, and especially if they, my friend, one of my closest friends, they have Sun in Cancer. So you have Cancer in there, therefore, and ruled by Moon. So their personality is a little bit more Piscean, which is like very soft and flexible. They really enjoy more like the kind of, idealistic kind of things in life. Specifically, where does their moon? I forgot what their moon is because it's Cancer. It's in the 7th house. So Okay. I believe it's in the third house, their moon, because it's a trine. So, anyways, but yeah. So I feel this energy is very, very out there. It draws out the moon into that Neptunian, but also the Jupiterian sort of feel to it. So, and this is one of the things I noticed about with moon in Pisces is that there's it's almost like emotions are not there, but they are, and they're taken to another level. And for those who don't know what I mean by that, it's really heightened. It's probably Pisces at the end of the zodiac, right? So it brings out, like, it's really like where you feel at home is really out there. You know, my friend is very highly intuitive, very psychic actually. So I believe that has something to do with their moon. So, but here's a chart. I'm gonna show you what I got here. I actually like to draw up more than one chart, as you probably already have noticed. Okay, so here we go. So the first chart, if it skips to the next chart, it's because I'm scrolling and I'm going everywhere. So bear with me. So we see here first that focusing on the moon. The moon is in conjunct Saturn and the Sun on this day, March 10. So it'll be conjunct. It'll actually there'll be like this huge stellium on that day, from Saturn all the way to Mercury. So how that all affects it is the Sun is the one that's a focal point here because it's right in the middle, and it actually is possibly about governments being a little bit more, or any sort of leader, any sort of like governing body. That's more on the personal, like sort of the mundane sort of aspect of it, but it has a lot to do with like that kind of. The Sun represents that. The Sun is governing bodies, leaders, head of state, those kind of things. But it also rules anything to do that gives us energy. I would say like anything solar. So naturally anything like solar panels probably. I'm not really sure about that, but the Sun does rule many things. I'm just actually going to cheat a little bit here because there's some things that I forget about the Sun. It rules, yeah, how does that creativity? Games, okay, yeah, there's the games, of course. And jewelry. Any sort of article, any article of value, articles of value. So, places like palaces, magnificent buildings, dining rooms, towers, really beautiful things that, kind of just shine out. That's the moon, right? And that's what it is. But conjunct the moon is the people, the public in general people, women specifically, and how they relate with each other. So this male principle is, or the creative principle is the Sun, whereas the emotional principle, I guess you can call it that way, habits, the basic needs, and anything to do with magnetism, anything to do with not necessarily attraction, but yeah, and water, of course. Anything to do with the push and pull of magnetism, right? That's the moon. But it's also, because it's conjunct the Sun, I believe that there's something going on here. There's a reason why it's also called, apparently there's a super moon, so it's going to be a little larger. I don't know how the chart is showing that, but in a way it can be shown by the magnanimosity of the Sun. That kind of maybe explains that. There is going to be another Sun-Moon conjunction that I feel is very powerful, and that's going to be on July 6th, I believe. It's going to be perfect conjunction, like literally to the minute as well. July 6th, I forgot what time though. I think it's around the evening, 5 p.m. Because I was doing I was helping people read an event chart for them, like they're trying to do like some sort of retreat. So anyways, yeah, so people are going to be possibly joining in or in collaboration with governments. People like women's rights probably are going to come up. It's going to be softer because of the Pisces energy, but there's also going to be a little bit of pacifism there and the feel of like feelings and emotions, and at the same time any sort of feminine energy, any female sort of feel to it. The moon is actually it doesn't just rule people in general, but it also rules. Sheet here. Oh, chastity is part of it, of course. What was this one? Oh, okay. So ancestors, of course. Okay, this is, of course, tides, of course, and bath. What is this? Obstetrics? What is? Well, I don't know what obstetrics are. Obstetrics, obstetra. I don't know. So oceans, fountains, seaports, rivers, fish ponds, docks, springs, sewers, wharfs, dairies. So like regarding cows, I don't know what that is. So. But with the Piscean, there's a bit of escapism that's probably going to be taking place, but it's really strong with on the sun side of the solar side. You can see it here. Where's the marker? Oh, right here. Oh, it's in red. I'm going to change it to a different color. I want that to be this one. You can see it. Okay, so Neptune is right there, distantly conjunct the sun, but it's going to affect that. It's going to add a lot of that idealistic thing. Magic, delusions are going to come through. And because it's not like the sun where it shines, it runs away. So the conjunction may not work well, not necessarily. It's kind of a, what is it? Neptune is neither malefic nor benefic. It was a placid planet, so that means it's more of the passive sort of just like let things come to you approach, very much like Pisces, right? But the Neptune also rules what is this, magic, and also any places of illusions, any sort of thing that reminds us of illusions and delusions. And this is one of those days where I don't remember certain things like that. And that's okay. When you're doing astrology, it's okay to look up sources, and that's totally fine. Poetry, mimicry, addictions. Yeah, of course, addictions. So things might not come to the surface because there's no revelation here, but we might start to kind of slowly get to know it a little bit as the Neptune moves. Well, Mercury is stepping away from, what is that word? It's kind of stepping away from the conjunction from Neptune, and it's going to eventually, and then Neptune will stay here most likely in Pisces whilst Saturn moves towards Neptune. And what that means, I would say, for the future is going to be restrictions and limitations and fears behind addictions, particularly in society, what that asylums, insane asylums, places of escapism, prisons as well, that ties into that. Any sort of like any place of escape, any sort of secrets as well, ties into the 12th house thing. But remember, Pisces is also ruled by Jupiter, so we don't just look into Neptune here, we also look into Jupiter, and Jupiter is right now we're still going to be in Taurus for a while, so it's going to ground that sort of Piscean energy. It's still going to be there for a while, so it's a good thing, actually. Makes it a little bit more realistic, but at the same time there's sensuality or worth is also part of it, and it's a stubborn sign, so that means it's going to affect this energy that we're going to be going through. It's going to be sort of more, you can say, grounded emotions. It's in a way it's a good thing, so it's kind of going to conserve the energy. It's going to kind of ground it, make it more towards the idealistic nature of Pisces is going to be not out there, but more like down here on Earth, and it's going to create maybe some maybe issues regarding beliefs and belief systems, especially religions, religious circles, spiritual communities, possibly also occultism. It's kind of ties into that. That's more of an 8th house thing, but yeah. So anything to do with that. Drugs, of course, addictions, prisons, abuse might be part of that too. It's not really a big thing, but definitely like sort of any sort of escape, any sort of. It's really about the escapism. It's idealism, escapism, martyrdom. Kind of just giving in and just letting it. Very pacifism as well. But the grounding of Taurus is going to make that so that it's not only realistic, but kind of like, it could go either way. Right? The Venus ruled Taurus is concerned more about simplicity and the simple things in life. So you idealize that through Pisces, and it's kind of just like, oh, so there might be some sort of feeling of like people, the government and people working together, coming together with that energy might feel kind of, they don't want things to change, really. So idealism with stubbornness, like kind of, so, but it will also kind of ground people who are kind of more out there, especially for people who have a lot of strong intuitive abilities. This intuitive, as a collective, intuition might be a little more dampened, so people who are highly sensitive, like myself, will start to feel a little bit more grounded, especially towards coming spring, which is going to be in near April, right? So with Saturn there especially, Saturn is going to ground it a little bit more, a lot more actually, and there it could be either on either side of things, the fears of like where we're going. So people might be kind of caught up in the delusion. It's like, there's fears, and then the news, right? The news is about addictions and problems with society and limitations, and probably something to do with older people as well. That's Saturn. Anything to do with older generations, also from government as well. So older, senior level ranking people in the governments, because it's also the sun in there, so it's something to do with the governments. But how the people are also connected to that, because it is the moon. And with Jupiter there, going to be the Jupiter ruling all 5 planets: Mercury, Neptune, Saturn, Moon, and the moon and Sun. It's going to be this the feelings of people kind of feeling like they have limitations, they don't know where to go, they can't explore, will be kind of expanded. Whether it's idealism or groundedness, is going to be expanded by Jupiter. It's going to be exaggerated even. Beliefs will be heightened as well, for sure. Not only through Neptune, but also specifically because it is Jupiter. So Jupiter is going to rule that. It's going to be this sort of beliefs and also sort of personal philosophies, just system of laws as well, organized religions and non-organized religions, so it's all coming together, and it's all going to bring about that whole feeling. Unfortunately, because that's what it is, it's going to affect the whole thing. There is an opposition. You can probably see already here. Saturn, Moon, and Sun are going to be in opposition to both Orcus and Juno. Orcus and Juno have been in retrograde for a while now. Now Orcus, as you probably already know, Orcus is about integrity. Orcus is believing in one's own, not only integrity, but it's more to do with, like, is this what your heart really wants, right? So if we look at Orcus right now, I'm going to look more into Orcus, into my notes here. And this will take a while because Okay, come on. Okay, so Orcus, yes, is integrity. He's also about death and rebirth. So in other words, just feeling of like you're going to renew all the time, like what you are, what no longer serves you. So it's, that is integrity, right? Integrity isn't just truth. Integrity isn't just being honest. It's also about transforming what you or what we feel. It's like, oh wait, is that what I really wanted? Meaning like at the soul level, right? It's called the soul oath, right? So sometimes we say it to ourselves, this is the mind, all that stuff. But the subconscious is kind of tied more directly to the soul. I feel like that's what it is. Like for me, it's always been like that. So when I say subconscious, I don't mean just the back here sort of subconscious. I mean like the source of it, where we kind of learn to ground ourselves through the body in presence, and through presence you can sense the spaciousness. And that's what I mean by the subconscious, not just subconscious, not just scientifically termed subconscious. I mean it. I don't know how to describe it, right? So but yes, Orcus is tied to that, just like Pluto is, but Orcus is kind of the anti-Pluto apparently, right? So you really have to be really honest with yourself when it comes to your own personal Orcus, right? Philip Sedgwick, he said, because it's a conjunction with Juno, it's a perfect time, because Juno is also about integrity and commitment to what is true, what does this mean for you? What is real marriage? What is real commitment, devotion, right? Loyalty. So with Orcus conjunct Juno, it's going to go, and I guess you could say enhance that, but go deeper. But let's going back to Orcus. Someone who is aligned with your own specific, like with your oath, the spiritual creed, as Philip Sedgwick said, you're accountable for personal thought, word, and deed. Right? So hypocrisy comes through with Orcus as well if it's the negatively aspect. So there's going to be this whole thing. Blame, hypocrisy, shadow stuff as well, right? It's going to be like finger pointing with, or rather, kind of unconscious finger pointing. Kind of, the governments might feel like, and people might feel like they don't know where to go because of the pacifist nature of Pisces. It's going to be like, oh well, I don't know how to feel, I don't know, I'm just going to run away with it, I'm just going to go drink, I'm just probably going to go smoke it up, I don't know, fuck around, have sex, I don't know, whatever it is, any thirst, any form of escapism. And there might be limits there too, yes, put on by Saturn, but the limits might also feel like, because it's going to, in a way, dampen sort of, or create, especially for people who are highly sensitive and intuitive, and anyone who has clairvoyance or clairs, any sort of, especially in the spiritual community, there might be limitations also with governments. I wouldn't say necessarily imposed on by governments. Maybe people might start to feel like, I don't know if I should express that, right? I don't know if I should be honest with that, because it's also the sun. The sun is your self-expression, right? So, nose is itchy. So, with Pisces there, it's going to feel like, I don't know where I'm going. It's a vacillating sign. It's going, right? Feeling of indecisiveness might be one of those things that we feel. It's natural. It is a mutable sign, so therefore, once it's gone past that, it's going to transition into Aries naturally. But what transitionary signs mean is it helps us to kind of make decisions. When we see transitionary signs, or specifically mutable signs, it makes us adapt to what needs to change before we start anew. We start over, right? If you notice this, there's actually an arrow there. You see that? If I zoom out the chart, there's actually a shape that's shaped like a, what is that one called? there's a shape. I can see it right away. I see it, and it's what is that one? It's a kite. It's a kite, right there. You have the sun. You have 3 points here. You got core Pholus on one side, and then you have, I remember this one right here, Jupiter on one side, and then you have both Orcus and Juno. So this grand trine that's happening right now, right here, or in this chart on March 10, is going to show that it's there's going to be a natural flow between a certainty of oneself, that's core, being certain with like its connection to life itself and the rhythm of life, as Hilla Cedric puts it, and that people will start to kind of feel like they can own their own personal integrity, so that they learn how to ride with it. But at the same time, it's more internally, because it is retrograde. Orcus is retrograde. I'm going to finish up more with Orcus here, because I feel like there's something else here. So I feel like Orcus is also tied with near-death experiences. Something to do with that, possibly. I'm not really sure. Corruption as well, of course. So virus, corruption, rot. It's very much like Pluto, but it's more to do with like physical, like your soul level. Oh, sorry, Pluto is more on the physical, because he was a god of wealth, Hades. So it's a little bit more physical, yes, and trauma, physical, emotional, more earthly. Orcus is on the other hand more the soul level, but it doesn't mean that it's not going to happen physically. Right, so what I got here for myself is that Orcus is always where ego and shadow become tools for truth and lessons, thus more in touch with your true purpose. So ego dying, a healthier ego and acceptance. There's more though. That Orcus is not only being true to oneself, but realizing your own truth. You get to realize it through, you have to die to the truth that you thought was the truth, which wasn't the truth in the first place. Okay. Because it's anti-Pluto, it's a kind of what I call this is like an aspectedness of genuineness and truth, so a different approach, possibly more direct than indirect. Orcus is a lot more direct than Pluto. I look at it in my chart, and when I have Orcus conjunct like ascendant, so I like to portray myself as this person who is like just really like out there and just like honest from the very get-go. And Orcus is like that. If I had Pluto there, it would be different. It would be like if I had Pluto conjunct ascendant, it would be different. I would always be in form of regeneration. I know someone who has that, and they kind of don't know how to deal with things directly, but their Pluto is square their sun, so they kind of don't know how to deal with that energy. They're still learning from it. It's a square aspect, right? So there's also the fact that Orcus has Vanth as the moon. So I would see this as like an unpredictability of integrity, so you never know. Like if you look at the story of Orcus, he came to this guy he was lied to by this guy who said, or something like someone who didn't know what to do, or he basically lied to himself, and Orcus was like, I'm going to come back in 10 years or something like that, but in fact it wasn't. So you never know what Orcus is. What that means is basically like it's your own, when you say to yourself, oh, I like this, and the next thing you know, you don't. That's Orcus, because you're starting to realize, oh shit, I lied to myself. That's exactly what it is. But Orcus creates that feeling of like, in a ways you can say guilt, but it's not guilt, it's processing of like, why the fuck did I say that? Right? So it's really, I don't know how to describe it yet, completely. We're still getting to know these things, but that's fine. That's part of it. I looked at it also from an astronomical point of view. I looked up some information about it. So Orcus has water absorption bands. So it's recalling of, for me, that's a recalling of the oath that you promise yourself. Whether it's your soul oath or your soul contract or things you take to yourself. It's also about being steadfast. It has, apparently, Orcus has, the planet has carbonaceous compounds. I say planet because it's astrology, right? It has also water plus methane ices. So it's also recollection, but it represents that whole, if you honor the truth, lest death come. That's what I wrote here. Okay, so it's all about integrity, but also honor. Challenges towards egoic beliefs. May not be a door planet, so that aspect of it may not be belonging, may not be part of society, or maybe not be part of what is labeled part of or included. So, yeah, and it has a renewal mechanism that was apparently active in the past. Again, it's karma, right? So contract karma, broad and deep icy band surfaces, integrity for me, amorphous water ice into crystalline over time, so solidification of beliefs. So sometimes we feel like this is our truth, this is what I want, but really it's like, is it? Right? Water ammonia melting from aqueous volcanism, so bringing truth to the surface. So ties in with everything that is Orcus, right? It rules the heart. For me, it rules the heart, possibly the heart in the subconscious part of the brain, back here, the reptilian brain, and the subcortical brain regions, basal ganglia, cerebrocerebellar system. I'm not sure what those, I forgot what those, something to do with definitely like, not just integrity and truth, but like, what did I put here? The basal ganglia, for those who are in neuroscience, so, I believe it has something to do with regeneration, feeling like certain, something to do with certainty, I believe. Really like that confidence as well, like absolute total confidence, irrefutable truth, because that's Orcus. It's also irrefutable truth. You cannot hide things from your own personal Orcus. You know what the truth is when you have it's inside you, right? So this is why when we're noisy, when we're always talking and blah, 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 we're like the noise in the head, we won't really know what our Orcus is saying. Your personal inner Orcus, we don't really know what it is. 5 is the numerological number of Orcus. I also added here, there's other stuff here as well. 7 is another number of Orcus. 5, 6, 7, and 11. So 11, spiritual, it's a master number, right? For those who are doing numerology, they know what this means. So I'm not going to go much into the medical part here, but again, it's contracts, it's anything to do with contract laws, any sort of agreement, binding contracts like clad iron agreements when you shake hands with somebody. Okay, written agreements, also breaches in contract, moral and ethical principles, value system. This also goes with the CAPTCHA. I believe Orcus rules CAPTCHAs, these sort of authentication tools, protocols, fraudulence, proof of personhood, POPs, identity verification, IDs, those kind of things. Something to do with revealing or getting into that, like whole, is this true self? So AI as well, like, fraudulence, this is Orcus rules that. I feel like Orcus rules that. Evidence and proof as well. Forfeitures, because we kind of step away from like, oh crap, that's not truly what I wanted, so I forfeit. I skip. Yeah. So people who are breaking contracts, they'll call it, legal term is breach of contract. Any sort of encryptions as well. Fraud prevention strategies or methods or tools, facial recognition devices or speech recognition devices on your phone. Orcus is that part of that as well. So anything to do with that as well, people who are in those fields of revealing truth, like lawyers, criminal, international law especially. Commissioner of Oaths, that's a top one. People are in that. Rotary Publics, computer scientists, fraudulence, police, security guards, government, CIA agents, copywriter, journalists. It ties in actually with the Orcus opposite then the Sun, the Moon, and Saturn, because Saturn also brings about truth. He's a teacher as well, but also that ties in with Capricorn, just like Hermit, I believe. But karmic, law, teacher, and because it's all about discipline and sticking to what's there, and kind of there's restrictions and conservation. That is Saturn. So it definitely represents things that are kind of boundaries. But Mercury here is also tied with this one. Remember, it's a stellium that's going to happen on March 10. So Orcus opposite the Sun, Saturn, and Moon ties in with journalism. So this also ties in with like the news that we get online or on TV, whatever it is, any sort of information we get. Orcus is bringing that about, so because Orcus reveals the truth, revealer of truth. But because it's in opposition, people might be pulled towards more about towards this fear. In opposition, like in Orcus and Juno right now be in conjunction. They have been in conjunction for a while, and also in retrograde. In Virgo, and Virgo is ruled by Mercury, so it's all about knowing the truth, and really, it's similar to idealism, but it's more about like service and perfection. So Orcus and Juno is kind of pulling at this sort of like the fears that we might experience, the delusions we might experience through the news, and it's like fabricated ideas, fabricated beliefs, all those things that both government and people are creating, and they're spreading it around, but you're being pacifist about it. So you're Pisces, and it's like, right. So Orcus is going like, but Orcus is doing it in underneath. It's like it's big retrograde. I believe for me has to do with private sectors. So it'll happen probably most likely in private, like in, I don't know, it could be private or like not necessarily secret, but yes, it could be secret, but also like in smaller communities, in little areas. I believe that retrograde also represents that on a mundane level, that it's like not only, yes, private because it's retrograde, it's inner, so within smaller communities, within homes, but Juno is guiding that as well. And Juno, if we look into what I'm going to look into what I finished up with Juno here. So Juno is commitment and loyalty, right? But Juno is also about kind of Juno. It was Hera, right? So Juno represents. I didn't actually finish that, but people will, or we might feel uncertain with these integral beliefs that we're supposed to have. But with Juno, it's also going to add to that and be like, I don't know who to commit to. I don't know who to, who do I trust, basically. So there's internal conflict within, especially within groups and small groups. Like you tell yourself, who do I trust? So there's going to be this uncertainty that this whole Uranus thing has been showing us. But in Virgo, is looking at the little things and saying, okay, well, let's take a look and break it down even more. Like this also ties in with health. So health with how that ties in with escapism. So maybe we'll be introduced more to little things that we didn't know about in terms of like what we're escaping towards. Is it time to be passive about things, or be pacifist and just let it be, or do we do something about it, or kind of somewhere in the middle, right? Because Virgo is more about the action, whereas Pisces is more about the inaction, right? But because of this kite, that like I said earlier, there's going to be this flow between core, which is like understanding the natural rhythm and flow of life, and a certain certainty of oneself, and being kind of core is the higher vibration of Jupiter, so very creative and intuitive at the same time. What did Philip Sedgwick say about core here? Divine connection, so being able to creative, inspiring, possibility oriented, so very much like a strong sense of self, right? Any sort of negativity, it's like on the negative side, it's like dooms. He said it's doomsaying. It's like very like kind of like the prophet. It's very much like the shadow of Sagittarius, right? But there's going to be this grand trine, so people are going to feel more like they can internalize what's happening and be more certain with like themselves. Even though they might feel uncertain about their own integrity and what their own loyalties, core is going to add to that, and Jupiter is going to expand that, make it even more about like which beliefs to turn to, which is it about the beliefs in the first place. Like maybe people start to turn towards, could be past religions or new type, not necessarily new type religions. So maybe money will be a different religion, right? Or money is already being, it's been like that for a while anyways, because Jupiter is in Taurus. So belief in oneself and one's own ability to stick things through, to kind of just like keep going, right? And core in Capricorn is there to kind of be more certain with your personal achievements and your personal goals in life, maybe personal like intentions, and maybe belief in your own karmic value, right? The choices that we make. Earth is very slow, so it's very grounded, but sometimes it can become cynical if it's too focused on, right? We have to watch out for the shadow of everything is there. And Orcus being in retrograde is going to make us feel like we start to nitpick at things, not realizing maybe we're pointing fingers as well. So it's like Orcus is saying but it's internalized Orcus, right? So it's a retrograde, so it's like okay. So we have to kind of be aware of that, because otherwise if we don't find ways to deal with it, it's just going to be this repetitive cycle. This is what this grand trine is doing. But when it's supported by this whole government thing, the moon, Saturn moon, the sun right there, it's in the bottom, there's a sextile there, so people might feel like they can start to rely on each other, but also what the government might say. But there's going to be confusion about it, because it's like there's the opposition right there. It's going like this, right? It's going bloop to the bottom, from the bottom here. I'm gonna try that here again. Right here, this section. I think if I just pick black, that'll be easier. Okay, here we go. So right here, this section right here, there's this pull, because sextile apparently is more about reactionary type, like trine. It's flexible. It's harmonic. It's comfortable, and you know what to do when the time comes, especially when there's external forces or external influences, or just things that come to your life. Okay, that's a sextile feel. It's I don't know how to describe the feeling of a sextile. It's like sextile is when you need that energy, when you need it, it's going to come to you naturally. But in this case, it's going to come naturally to maybe sort of trust and believe in. You have the Jupiter here, and you have core and confidence in the governments. But core is going, sure about that? You sure about that? And the Juno is heightened, making that stronger by going like, what is it? Are you devoting it to that because you think that the governments or people who are telling you what they believe in is going to be your beliefs? I just, you see what I mean? This is where the action might come through. Virgo bringing in that action and say, maybe time to do a little bit more research, right? Virgo is science. Virgo is also research. Virgo is kind of like, okay, this is the good thing about being pedantic. Sometimes it's like, okay, nitpick at the facts. It's like, is this what it is? What is your personal truth, right? Virgo stems from that energy of Leo, which is about your personal self and your inner joy. This is where spirituality comes in, becomes more earth-like and kind of grounded. That just because we have these spirituality things going up and like we have to elevate, be careful not to do that, because it's like can't always just run away, because there's a caveat. Is caveat? I don't know, but you know what I mean. There is that whole like, does it always have to be perfect? Does it always have to be? I always got to be meditating. I always got to do this. No. Right? It doesn't have to be, unless you're like already ascended. It's a little different, but most of us don't do that, right? We don't need to be there. If we expect too much of ourselves, that's denying the truth. That's that integrity that we're going to lose sight of, right? So Orcus is, reminding us, and it's like, be careful about what you believe in, what you say to yourself. What you say to yourself might be just right here in your conscious, but Orcus is back here going, well, for example, like if you say something and you're like, what the fuck? Or like, you swear something, that's where it's, so shadow work. So definitely more shadow work as well is important, absolutely important. Instead of just escaping towards and scapegoating, let's scapegoat, let's blame other people, let's point fingers and like, oh, it's the government this and they shouldn't be doing this, blah blah blah. We've seen this time and time again. But this is what consciousness is. It's not just elevating towards a higher energy, but if we use that as a tool and a means of escape, that's not going to work. I think experience speaks for itself. I think people will just really have to experience for themselves. And this is a Plutonian side of myself, which is like, also Aries, it's like, okay, this is what you want, go ahead. I'm sorry to say and be blunt about it, but like, fuck it. Because we sometimes make choices because we believe this is what it is, and this is, be careful of belief. Be careful of belief that is like, especially when it's like very so like full of zeal and just like, oh, it's our rules. It's like my dad. I grew up with that. It's like he's very much into that, but he doesn't. He's had many times he's done this where he doesn't know how to keep his word. I'm not saying because it's like he doesn't know how to. It's like he's very much, I don't know, maybe it's a sun and Pisces thing, and he doesn't know how to keep his word because he's always lofty and kind of just like here and there, right? So he likes, it's more about the feeling rather than the truth. So this is also what the moon is showing us here, that there are emotions that we might go up and down with. It's the ups and downs of emotion. That's the moon. And be honest with ourselves. It's like, what is it not, but what are we feeling? What are we experiencing? What are we thinking? What are we believing? It's really like the four elements. So I've said this many times before in older videos actually, where it's like, be a fucking like avatar, your own avatar. Be all four elements. Be wholesome. Look at everything. Look at the dark side. Look at the light side. Look at the up and the down, the left and the right. Go everywhere. Go like this. That's okay. Go in cycles, and that's totally okay. But eventually, that cycle, when we bring conscious and awareness to it, what does cycle do? Like, does it just stay in this place? No, it's gonna move. That's the reality. That's real consciousness. That is the universe. That is our source. It's this energy that's going to propel us forward, but not what we think it's supposed to be. At least for me, that's what I'm experiencing. So eventually this kite thing, the shape I told you about, and I'm gonna draw it right now. Bloop, 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 bloop. Okay, this sort of like thing, it's like a sort of like a semi-diamond, and then there's like this right here, this line here, and then there's right here. So that's a kite. For those of you who need to know what that is. Okay, there's a kite right there. Okay, so anyways, that's what it is. So it needs to go in a certain direction. Orcus is pulling at it, and it needs to be released, and truth be like, truth will fucking out. Okay, so there's that. That's the strongest one right there. I believe so. There is also, so the moon is going to be okay. It's going to be square Pallas Athena. So here Sagittarius, it's under Sagittarius. So this Pallas Athena is, as you already probably know, it's intelligence, it's wisdom from your own. It's also guides. Pallas Athena is a lot of things actually. Go back here. Okay. So creative strategy, creativity, creative wisdom, right? Because she was the one who came out of Zeus's head, right? And just pure wisdom right there, right? But being careful with that, not being arrogant with your own personal wisdom, and finding wisdom in that itself, and understanding that everything is connected. So this kind of ties in back in with the whole up and down thing, the cycles of things, and right. So, and always kind of being aware and kind of conscious of our own emotions, but at the same time conscious of that as well. It can't always be logical. Can't always be like, I gotta be wise. I gotta have social justice. I gotta have this knowledge. It's all connected. It's all flowing. It's not one way or another. So the way I've seen Pallas Athena is also watch out for like being kind of better than others, and kind of watching out for that shadow where it's like, I know more than you, I'm wiser than you, I'm more experienced, right? So, and trust the intuition that comes through, not the egoic intuition. Well, you can trust that too, but rely a little bit more on the whole source intuition. Be more introspective. So she's about introspection. Okay. Number for her is 2. So it's being in connection with others, learning to cooperate. So with this in Sagittarius, it's also because Sagittarius is about philosophy and beliefs, and like kind of like I'm up here, kind of a solitude sort of feel. It's like I want to go this way and be like, I want to be high up in the clouds. It's opposite of Gemini, which is like this, right? So there's a shadow of Sagittarius, but with Pallas Athena there, it also ties in with that. It's very timely actually, and it's actually square both the moon and Orcus, and there's this actual T-square here. Okay, there's a T-square to the moon, and I can't really draw it properly, but here the pull is, there's another pull on the side, and Pallas Athena is going like, watch out for, be a little bit more not only conscious but not aware, but also like discerning which way what society tells you, what other people are telling you, just because it's like, oh, you must believe this, charisma might be kind of a thing that might happen, and be like, it's Pisces down there right here. So the moon will be in Pisces, so there's a bit of that charismatic feel as well of Pisces, where it's like, I believe this, so it's very idealistic, right? So watch out for what people say, because it is the moon, and Pallas Athena is going like, and Orcus at the same time, it's kind of pulling it there. So, and sometimes we want to just like sit and cloister, be like in some sort of cloister. That's very much like the moon rules Cancer, which is like a crab. So it's, sometimes you want to be more comfortable and home-like. So we're naturally going to trust others, but it's one of those things that we have to kind of pay attention to, but not to the point where it's just like we're judging ourselves and judging others at the same time. That's what I feel like Pallas Athena is showing here, and it's going to be that sort of feel. I feel like that's what it is. Pallas Athena also She rules Palace Athena. I did some research on it. Palace Athena is like, because it's creative wisdom, it's more about the thinking and the conscious part of the brain, which is your prefrontal cortex. Amygdala is like just a little bit down there, but also pineal glands or the third eye as well. So that makes sense. Both wisdom, but at the same time more earthly wisdom, like kind of like strategize things. Don't just like all on the whim. Like don't be aloof like the Piscean energy. Be more grounded. Be more like okay. And that's where Saturn is going to come in and be like, okay, let's bring this together. Let's bring this to Earth. Like let's materialize this, right? Saturn rules matter. So, because it's a lot to do with weaving, maybe weaving textile industry is probably involved in this. I would say particularly more toward like maybe stereotypes, specifically feminism or female stereotypes. Female leaders might come in and pull and bring in like the question what society is being passive and kind of just letting things happen, like and you might get these things, but probably also what do you call this, favoritism. I'm not really sure about that one, but yeah, there could be favoritism, aspects of favoritism that might happen, whose side you're going to choose. We kind of talked about that earlier as well. It ties in, it makes sense. Coaching, probably coaches, any sort of leadership position, but it's like with coaching, like helping others to grow. Independence movement, so feminism as well. NPOs probably might be including independent firms. So it ties in with the government here, with the patriarchy, matriarchy balance as well. Mentorship, the mentors, guardians, athleticism. So possibly that's something to do with that, where like athletes might start to come out, specifically with their own, not only their feminine side, but like not only sexuality, but other aspects of being human. Developing new beliefs. I'm not sure if developing new beliefs. Let's take a look. So Jupiter rules Palace Athena here. So yeah, so it ties back into our own personal philosophies and education. Education is probably involved here as well because it's Sagittarius. So higher education, universities might be involved here as well, with the rather university or higher education about farming or about things that are like in the arts. Art galleries, that's more the tourist thing. Anything to do with food as well. The food industry as well, probably involved in that. I put in here asexuality. I'm not sure if that's going to come through. But another one that might come through is the anti-male dominance and chauvinism. Heroism is probably here as well. Healthy masculinity, that might be kind of putting into question, instead of the whole like negative feminine energy that is like just passive and really like overpowering masculine. So the toxic masculinity, toxic femininity, right? There's going to be this balance that needs to kind of be more addressed again. But it's not going to be necessarily addressed, but because it's about independence movements, or I feel like that's Athena or Pallas Athena. It's just really, because Pallas Athena usually helped those who helped themselves, but she punished those who were not narcissistic, but kind of like who thought they were better than everybody else. So Pallas Athena kind of ties in with that Libra energy, or about a little bit about balance as well. Justice is part of that as well. Judicial system, which ties in with Sagittarius, because Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, which is the law. So law, legal things regarding food industry might be part of the whole issue as well. So learning to work together, and this is one of those things where Orcus is also kind of squaring that, kind of where does it go? Where is this is it even about balance? Maybe sometimes we need to create that chaos, because you have this whole, I guess you could say, dichotomy, or this triad thing between the earth and the fire and the water. So emotions are going to be part of this whole thing, but maybe more internalized emotions, being honest with our emotions, but at the same time with our own personal beliefs and inspiration, and kind of nitpick at that. It's like, which one's true, which one's not true, but on a very personal level, right? Because we have to start from within first and then go out. It's not going to be external, it's going to be internal. The moon is also going to be trine Haumea, but Haumea has been actually in Scorpio for a while now. Haumea is in retrograde, so people naturally will probably have questions about their own inner nature, their own inner goddess, inner Gaia, right? And probably look towards more like really like internal processing, maybe more isolation, but this time more like natural isolation, people they can trust, because it's Scorpio, and transform through that regenerative energy that is Pluto, right? Haumea is in retrograde, but Pluto right now is where? Pluto is actually Pluto back in, Pluto is still in Aquarius. It's going to retrograde back into Capricorn sometime this year. Right, the official time Pluto is going to be completely in Aquarius and on is going to be on November 20th of this year. So that's quite a ways. But, you make use of this. So Pluto is going to be bring in the rot of society, of social circles, communities, the greater human world and humanity itself, and what we believe in, what we're inspired to do, our visions, our own aspirations, and what it means to be human or more than human. Do we just go elevate, or do we stick here, or do we find a balance in both? So Pluto is going to put that into question and be like, okay. And Pluto is actually square to Haumea. And because of that, it rules Haumea, but at the same time, square Haumea. So that means it's going to be confusion, challenges regarding all that, conflicts between possibly people who are supporting activism in nature, people who are actually bringing back natural things in the natural world, versus those who want to still remain in their own personal corruption, toxicity, viruses as well, bacteria, anything to do with Pluto things, any Pluto abuse, misuse and abuse, and misuse and abuse of power struggles, corruption, narcissistic personalities, will come to the surface as well, and how Mia is going to help us go. Yes, you go through those challenges, regenerate the fuck out of everything, but at the same time come back out strong. Scorpio does that, bides its time. But Scorpio can be either the scorpion itself or the eagle, or even better, the phoenix. So how do we regenerate, and how do we rise away from those sort of, the negativity and that? But sometimes we need the negativity to teach us the positivity, right? Dark to light, light, dark. But we do have to choose, because this isn't really about good or bad. In truth, it's about wholeness, right? When I say wholeness, I don't mean wholeness in a way that is like I accept both good and bad, and I'm just going to be good and bad whenever I want to. It's more about the whole the purpose of why we feel and experience this duality anyways, because we are here to learn. And when I say learn, I don't just mean like I'm getting this knowledge and I'm just going to, no, I mean experience, learning and growing and elevating and being more whole, and part of realizing is, okay, there is so if we don't look at it as in terms of labels of good and bad, it's more about helpful or not helpful, harmful, not harmful, beneficial, not beneficial kind of thing, okay? and it's going to be through experience. Okay. I've said all I can for that one. Let's see if there's a quincunx. Oh, there is a quincunx. Quincunx Makemake to the moon. Adjustments towards personal, like being able to get these ideas that come through, but it's because it's retrograde, it's more like which people might feel like they doubt where these things are coming from, like how the Makemake is going to be in Libra, so it's going to be tossing and turning between sort of how we relate with each other, and it's going to be like, and it's going to be kind of like this feeling of like uncertainty, but at the same time maybe double that, because Makemake is like this sort of it's about quick wit, it's about what is the energy of Makemake? It's like pure, like unadulterated inspiration. I don't know how else to put, I don't know how else to put it. It's just a stronger energy, but it's not like aggressive. It's just like it's heightened. It's a higher vibration of Uranus, so it is not about the forcing of revolution and change or ideals and intellect and innovation and all that stuff, but it's like kind of like above that and saying inspiration. It's like source intelligence, right? It's like Makemake would probably be like the CIA of source and essence and God's source creator, right? Makemake is kind of like but because it's in Libra, it's going to be these sort of challenges with relationships, and because it's in quincunx to the moon in Pisces, sometimes we might question whether the truth might be, we don't know what we're getting into possibly with people, and who, not only who to trust, it's more about who to connect with, and it's probably going to be on and off, and it's let's see here, so because Makemake is creation and communication, okay. So it's about articulate and ultra-communicative self-assuredness. So self here, Philip Sedgwick put it in capital S. So self-assuredness, connection with that. Again, so that's that CIA of like, source intelligence. Okay, especially with verbal. Oh, it was capitalized because it's the beginning. Okay, well, either one is fine. Verbal means, especially with, self-assuredness. So self in this case can be both. Higher self and self. Clever, quick-witted, invoking insight, inspiration. Yeah, quick to report finding regardless of impact. So we might be a little bit conclusive regardless of how it might affect others. So we might be a little bit conclusive in terms of like, oh, this person is this person that. Because it's in Libra, it also ties in with the legal system, possibly also the legal system, more like marriages as well. What do you call this? Not just relationship, but in terms of like two-way sort of approaches. I don't know how to describe this one. See, this is one of those things that Libras, myself, kind of question. It's like it's justice and fairness. And beauty in nature as well. So the music industry might be kind of part of this as well. The legal industry, the law, not necessarily law itself, but like agreements between people, business contracts, or like connections in general. Whether we feel included in relationships, whether it's two people relationships or like multiple groups. This is more about two people relationships, but it's more about this idealized relationship, that it's all about the love itself. So love will be affected by this one, and people might be conclusive about the people they meet, and maybe manipulation might be part of this whole thing. double talk here. It says, as Philip Sedgwick said, false findings, right? Being reckless about relationships, disregard for safety of people we meet. So yeah, self-serving. So kind of ties in probably with you might come across narcissistic people, and that's kind of a big thing that's been going on, I find, at least for myself. Celibacy might be kind of a thing here. People might question their own, you know, sexuality. Okay, creativity, divinity, blessings from, okay. Sexuality itself, but also sex, might be part of this issue as well. Like people might be promiscuous, or people might find it as like, do I become promiscuous? Is that a form of escape? Because it is going to be trine. It's trine the moon. So, but because, oh sorry, not trine the moon. It's quincunx. Sorry, adjusting to. Sorry. I keep forgetting that was in quincunx. So it's quincunx the moon. So it's learning to adapt to situations where people might be telling you these, you get information from people. We talked about earlier, but at the same time how make kind of might be a little bit conclusive about what, you know, what we find. You know, our own inner make is the fast, you know, the one to report the first news, possibly. Make, what did I find here for make? Make rules frontal lobe of the brain, so it's similar to Pallas Athena's right here, but the frontal lobe is bigger right here, this area. Short-term memory, that's more of the conscious itself, it's a conscious area. So people might not know what you're talking about and then all of a sudden forget it. So adjusting to losses of like recognition of memory, or not just memory, but like facts and information they get, specifically when it comes to maybe the legal matters or marriages or relationships, and how that it's more about the relationships because it is the moon in Pisces. Pisces is still about relationships and love and romantic, idealized romanticism. Sorry, I'm just putting in here the dates. Okay. I mean the days. There's days that I associated with some of the planets now. So it's Wednesday and Thursday put together. What is here? So data collection. People who work in libraries, possibly. And it's data collection to support our doctrine or cause. Books, especially those in multicultural interest. Translation, especially with cross-cultural teams. So something to do with multiculturalism. Okay, so multiculturalism, I totally forgot about that. Make is represent multiculturalism, or at least it's one of the planets. So adjusting to different diversity, but I would say because it's internals, maybe internal affairs. But on a personal level, it's your own personal diversity. Make might represent asexuality, so maybe like sexual diversity, because it's also Libra and it's also Pisces, so it still ties in, right? Dissemination of information, whether it's true or false, so it ties in with Orcus being in Virgo. Split-second decisions, lightning-fast assessments. So, okay. The birds might be part of this as well. And anything to do with birds and fans and the flight of birds, migration of birds, through like the oceans, maybe, I don't know what that is. I'm not really sure. But something to do with migration of birds, maybe it's going to... we might get the wrong facts about it, or we might misunderstand. It's like, okay, poultry industry, because it is birds, so poultry industry might be part of this as well. Let's look at worm. Aries is still in Aries, of course, and sorry, Venus is, I missed that one. Venus is in Aquarius, last critical degrees in Aquarius. So it's unpredictability with relationships, unpredictability with social, cultural, multicultural, social, cultural relationships, whether that's our own relationship with ourselves as well, with our own sexuality as well, or other people as well. So this might also include people like in the investigators, ambassadors, possibly, truth-seeking professions I put in here, data analysts, that's for sure. Translators, yes. Ambassadors because of the multicultural theme. Flight testers, pilots because of the birds. Dancers, aviators. People who work with birds, scientists who work with birds. Auctioneers, debaters. Okay, quick on the helm. Raconteurs, I put in here. Computer scientists, dissemination officers. Sociologists, multiculturalists, polyculturalists, statisticians, publicists, travel agents, tourist guides. Okay, so it might definitely something to do also probably with Easter Islands. Anywhere where there's a lot of birds as well. There's a bunch of islands in the world where they have birds there. So I don't know what that is. Adjusting to ocean, because it's in Pisces, ocean like climate changes and unexpected climate changes, because Venus rules Libra and therefore rules Makemake here. So, but it's in Aquarius, so unexpected. I would just say information about migration of birds or like birds in the islands. I don't know if that's going to. We might the information we might get from that might feel like it's like whatever because it is in Pisces, or maybe the opposite where people might feel idealistic and be like let's save this. So something to do with flight and birds. I'm not really sure. Okay, that's it for the lunar part. I'm going to add a little bit more and go into this chart. Let's see where moon... okay. The moon is in 16 degrees, right? The moon is in 16... Sorry, what was that one here? The moon is in 16 degrees. So, but Cerberus is going to be conjunct the moon. So... Cerberus is generally like, responsibility, like feeling like you are responsible for other people's problems. So this might be one of the cases here, and you might feel a little bit protective of your own communities, your own little beliefs as well. And your own, could be your religion, it could be your beliefs, it could be your own community, whatever it is. People might feel a little bit more protective about that, feeling like, other people's problems are my own. The thing about Cerberus is that you have to find your own inner belief and what that means to be like powerless over the things you can't control. Okay? Because otherwise when you kind of, this is what the whole meddling thing is, right? But in this case, it's more about not just doing something, but protecting it. So it's almost like Vesta, where Cerberus is very devoted to what it protects, and it's really like true loyalty. That's the way I see it. But it's also acceptance of truth, right? Because it's like, who are you loyal to? Which ties in again with how it's funny how it's opposite. Actually, right here, it's opposite one of the Liliths. This is not mean Lilith. One of the mean Liliths is not mean Lilith, not true Lilith. Right here. I don't know if you can see that. Right here. I'll just leave it as red. But Cerberus is also about that. But remember, the moon was also the moon will be opposite of Orcus and Orcus retrograde and Juno retrograde. So it's also about that whole being honest with yourself and really finding your inner truth, right? It's where we show or hide the wanting to feel prepared or otherwise. That's how I saw it. It's like where we conceal from others, and ourselves our inner truth. So it's about the concealing of that. So you're protecting your I'm doing this, I'm projecting onto protecting others because I cannot protect myself. So there's sort of the shadow effect that is part of Cerberus, because Cerberus was the guardian of Hades, or the underworld, right? 2 is the number of Cerberus. So learning to deal and work with people who might be, you feel like you have to either protect or project your own values towards, or project your own beliefs towards, or maybe we project our own truth to them because like maybe they become sort of a representation of your own truth, which is not really. It's more about they mirror your truth, but you have to find it within. Cerberus rules the bile duct. I find bile, the molars, I'm not really sure. Stomach acid, because it's that sort of like, it's a reaction, something to do with the reaction to like what we consume in ourselves. In other words, believe in ourselves, our own inner truth, we put in our body, right? Something about the bile duct, something about cleansing that and really releasing it. Something about that, I'm not really sure. Okay. It's Thursday and Saturday because it's and Monday too. I'm gonna put in Monday because it's still an emotional process. So rules: venoms, poisons, dogs, guards, guardianships. So security officers, security places of security, dark places as well, caverns, entrances. So people might feel like the public, which is the moon, is they might have to go through some period of like inner venoming. I don't know what that means, like poison and toxicity, and kind of work through that and start to protect their own inner truth and kind of be their own dog. Like it's like being loyal to yourself without denying yourself the truth, but also having loyalty towards other people, because it is a community thing. The moon is going to be that, and seeing how the government also fits in that. What is the government saying? What are heads of state saying? What is the general like people who are in charge saying? Especially with Saturn there, it's going to be like both head of states and also people who are unconscious, who are kind of like back in the, I wouldn't necessarily say the elderly, but yeah, people who are like outdated, kind of like backwards. Probably that might be the case here, people experiencing that. Cerberus also rules crossroads, similar to Hecate. But it's more about, crossroads. Let's go there. Bridges, because it is transitioning from, there's something about Cerberus where he swallowed someone but then regurgitated it, because it was about, you have to be swallowed by lies in order for us to realize the truth, right? Also rules, I believe, here embalming or mummification, so something to do with like the process of transition into realizing one's inner truth, similar to Orcus, yes. NDE as well, so near-death experiences. So Orcus is similar to that. So people might still probably experience near-death experiences. Okay, so Orpheus here is conjunct Saturn, but Saturn conjuncts the moon, right? So Orpheus is going to be this exaggerated sort of, I call him the compassioning aspect of ourselves. Okay. is about accurate visions, communicating with the deceased. So, mediumship. Okay, lost unpursued opportunities, mournful music. Okay, power of music, empathy, enchantment through past losses, Chiron-like, fear and grief over lost love, misunderstanding intentions. Male virginity, I would say, is part of this one. Guilt versus grief, guilt for having pride and or for tempting others, playing hard to get. Sort of like playing hard to get. So, because of the NDE thing that Cerberus is involved in with this one, here we have Orpheus bringing in misunderstanding, limits, and because of its conjunct Saturn, it's going to feel like we have fears about things we don't understand, or we're being misunderstood for our own beliefs, and so we limit ourselves. We have these conservation, sort of like, I'm gonna not show myself, I'm not gonna shine because it's in Pisces, I'm not gonna be my own true self, and there's going to be pulled towards one direction to the other. Remember, it's vacillating sign, right? Orpheus here will also do that, and you'll feel like, how do I share my gifts and my talents without being too idealistic, but also doing the opposite, right? When Orpheus' soul returned to the world, the fields of the blessed reunited with his past love, his true love. It's apparently it's movement. It's Orpheus is this whole, like I said, trans-compassioning, right? It's urge to share our emotions, where we make others feel what we feel. So people might feel like they need to share these things. Orcus's number is 4. I forgot what that stands for. 4 stands for. There's also an unpredictability about Orcus, because it's also shadow, it's the ego. Comas. I believe it's something to do with comas, I'm not sure. Dismembered cells or parts of the body. Cancerous cells. Dopamine high, that kind of ties in a little bit more. Sugar rush. Any sort of sugar rush or dopamine high. The dismemberment is part of like being disconnected from society, or so it probably also ties in with that, like being kind of like so heightened that you kind of get into a coma, or sort of like, it also can rule comas, I'm not really sure. If you get that, great. If you don't, I put a question mark on that one here. So people who might going through NDEs or having go through comas first. Okay, it kind of ties in. I'm gonna put coma as yes here. But definitely a disconnect from reality as we see it, and then kind of coming back, or maybe not coming back. But either way, it's something to do with disconnection, because we're too much in process of grief. So people grieving losses, but at the same time grieving the loss probably of something else rather than others, maybe of themselves, like grieving of the past, grieving of their ancestry, because that's also the moon, it rules ancestry and DNA and past lives as well, and our own soul journey. So questioning your own soul journey and dying from that and being reborn. Monday is part of this one too. Not just Friday, but Monday as well. And grieving. Yes, I'll include Saturday as well. This one. So I would say it rules wakes or funeral homes, maybe retirement homes, postpartum depressions, grief centers. Again, so people who work in long-term facilities, or people might be sent to long-term facilities. Maybe because of it being in Pisces, it's going to be a disconnect. People might have these, especially people who are insane, or the governments, or people especially, it could be elderly homes. I'm not sure. Something to do with that. I feel like it also has something to do with because it's going to be conjunct Saturn, right? So something to do with the old and traditional things or traditional beliefs, which is Pisces, traditional beliefs about what is sane. Right, musicians might be affected with this one as well. Like really intense musicians, the ones who are also not only very influential but also weird, but at the same time influential, charismatic through their music. Maybe not just that, but other types of artists as well. Ley lines might be a part of this one as well. We mean this connection, right? Disconnection or disconnection from it. I'm not sure if pansexuality or bisexuality is included in this one. I kind of put a question mark on that. Data overload, work of information, isolated places. Yeah, people might isolate themselves. Okay, again, funeral music as well as part of this one. Now, those are places I include in here that are good for like reflection, which is ties into Pisces, but also isolations or places away from people. Not necessarily because of post-pandemic stuff, but also because of the energies elevating, and there are people who are still unconscious or very much afraid of rising and rising. You know, do you see what I mean? So, but it is a collective thing, and it's people are experiencing this one. So again, like I said, retirement homes might be affected by this one. It really ties in with Saturn here. Grief counselors, people might work at home parents or employees or home care nurses might be included here. Anything to do with like grief and processing, sort of kind of away from the pressure of society, might be included here as well. Square Lilith, so bringing in the shadow right there. Lilith is actually because it's square Lilith, it's also square Pallas Athena. So Lilith earlier I said Pallas Athena, so Lilith is going to bring about because this is asteroid Lilith, this is like the early parts of Lilith apparently, like the realization of one's true desires. And yes, it's your fears, but facing your fears. And this is the early phases of Lilith. You can say it's the past Lilith, the past that knows that it's just gotta be fucking free. And getting wisdom from that and really be like, oh, okay, this is my philosophy and what I believe in. This is my own inner truth. It ties in a lot with what's going on with everything I've read so far. Pallas Athena conjunct that is going to enhance that and bring wisdom towards like, okay, you know, but it's not just like the whole like fuck you thing. It's more like, how do I step away from that and create my own little world of belief or like my own philosophy without getting caught up in the whole, you know, and embracing my own shadow, that, you know, I can accept other people's beliefs, but at the same time stick to my own as well, you know. So this is shadow of Sagittarius. Part of that is like reflected in what you see in Gemini, which is flexibility, but at the same time it's also accepting that it's like, oh, I have my own beliefs and I have my own ways of thinking. I have my own independence, my self-expression, my own, you know, ability to go beyond and grow and learn. Right? It's ruled by Jupiter. And so it could be, again, going to be more grounded when you have Jupiter in Taurus. Okay, I put in EOS here because it's about beginnings, but I don't see a connection to the moon here. EOS is in 28 degrees Libra. I don't see anything here. Let's see what Hecate is opposite of Libra. I'm talking about the moon here, but it's okay. We do have that effect here where, that feeling where it's also more about inner truth and inner, like following your inner instinct. It's not conjunct Artemis here. Hecate is your inner, you could say your witch, your inner power. But working with the divine and really being certain about your own. Hecate is like really well-rounded, I find. because it's not only your own personal, magic, power, femininity, divinity, and all those things. So it's like your own inner. I don't describe this one. We keep hearing inner, all that stuff, right? But it's magic. It's everywhere. It's believing that it's like everything's connected, understanding your past, present, and future, and knowing that everything has a sort of cyclical sort of effect. It's not linear. That's Hecate. I don't know, right here, Hecate. So crossroads are part of this one. Boundaries, having boundaries, gateways. Snakes, horses, serpents, polecats, weasels, mullets, surmullets, lions, frogs, keys, ghosts, lamps, sources of light, torches. Oh, okay, so she's a way shower as well. Chronometers, because of the time. So with it being in Leo, which is actually going to tie in with the moon, the sun, which is conjunct the moon. People might be also kind of involved in this, where people feel like they need to discover their own inner strengths, like that whole ability to just process everything through their own. It's really about witchcraft, to be honest. It's really holistic. It's holistic medicine, homeopathy, possibly natural medicine, potions, incantations, right? So this also probably ties in with esotericism and alchemy. Definitely alchemy, though. I should have put that in here as well. Alchemy. Okay, so transitions. So it might also bring up other things too, like transgenderism, like working with that magic and figuring out what does that mean. I believe it also rules neuroplasticity. So it's that whole flexibility of things, but knowing that everything is connected. It's really weird to use hard Hecate sometimes, unless you're really talking about witchcraft. Way showers, people who like, I would say lighthouses are also part of this a little bit. Because you're showing the way, you're lighting the torch for other people by being a source of like power and energy and guidance. I'm actually going to put that here. Did I put lighthouses? If I did, then that's great. If there's two. Okay, so sources of light. Lighthouses, that's fine. That's still part of that one. So again, so every esotericists, chemists, biochemists, pharmacologists, so anything to do with that whole like it's medicine as well, but at the same time, I don't know, people who like watches, people like time. But how that ties to the bigger picture here is that it is opposite of Venus, and so that means that people will have to decide how they relate with people in general, especially in the last degrees of both signs, Leo and Aquarius, and to kind of like being, because it's in retrograde, it's like an inner doubt, right? On the mundane level, it's private encounters, like secret encounters, private encounters, like little like clubs and little sort of areas, maybe organizations where people meet, not necessarily for witchcraft or covens, but also in terms of like your own personal group of people, your own little coven of people who believe in the same thing, or people who are inspired to do the same thing, to be more connected to the earth, to Mother Gaia, but also to angelic powers and divinity, but also in a natural way, homeopathy, through society's evolution and change that's going on right now, because Venus is in Aquarius. So, but sometimes when you're talking about evolution and people and humanity, sometimes what is going to be like a fad or what's new and different is probably also going to be the opposite of that as well. It's going to be the opposite. Like, oh, that's not you. That's old stuff. But so there's still going to be those opposition. But it's like that thing that needs to we need to discover that balance between the good traditions, the good stuff, the good old magic stuff, versus is it. Remember, it's not about good or bad. It's about helpful, not helpful, harmful, not harmful, beneficial, not beneficial. It's not about anything else, because it's towards wholeness, and Hecate represents that. With Artemis there, Artemis is not actually conjunct that, but Artemis is opposite of Mars. Nymph is actually part of opposite of that. So Artemis is going to bring in more of a certainty of your own instinct and trust in that, but in this case it's not going to be like that. It's going to be doubting yourself, and people might feel like extra protective about their own egos. It's Leo. Be more prideful, and there's going to be some sort of like maybe unusual banter or disagreements and accidents that might happen. Mars rules accidents and wars and artilleries and weaponry. So people might disagree, and people might kind of, in this case, because it is Aquarius, it's more about, it's a verbal banter, but it could be also physical, because we are still talking about Mars. But Nymph is there. Nymph is conjunct on being open more towards childlikeness and like curiosity and like being more playful about it. So experimenting in a very weird way, experimenting with how we deal with anger, especially, or maybe feeling that accidents may not necessarily be a bad thing, because when you say accident, it's an unconscious behavior. So how do we deal with that? By being present. That's being childlike as well. Nymph is there to show us that it's like, be playful, but not necessarily unconsciously playful, because otherwise that's not playful, that's not childlike, that's egoic, right? So that's it for that one. Daphne is not okay. No, Daphne is conjunct some collective Chiron, so Daphne is escaping that, probably the wounding that we probably go through, or probably finally come to face it, because Daphne ran away from Apollo. She's trying to run away from. Daphne represents the pursuits, people going after us, but we don't want to because we're not attracted to them, or just like, why do you want me? We might be fearful of like them harming us. So Daphne represents that, and so we run away from our personal problems and our own issues and wounding. People staying away from hospitals as well, because Chiron rules hospitals. Any sort of healthcare centers, any sort of psychiatric support therapy as well. It's more medical though than psychological, but yeah. About freedom. So Daphne here represents like running away from our own, what is real freedom, because wounding comes up and we can't have to deal with that, right? Especially with it square Cassandra, we probably express those beliefs about what we know intuitively, and then we run away from it even further. So because people might, the society might be like wanting to be free and be kind of going back to the way it was before. But with Cassandra in Capricorn, it's almost like Cassandra's bringing back. It's like, well, there are some traditions that are good, but nobody's going to believe that, because it's like, well, fuck that, we're getting away from that, right? But it's like Cassandra is like disbelief. It represents people, rumors, people who reject what you believe in, because you know that there's something there. There's wisdom from the past. There's wisdom from tradition as well, certain traditions. So this isn't necessarily just because we're entering the age of Aquarius, doesn't mean we just, forego and abandon, well, all reason as well. It's reason, it's intellect, it's logic as well. That's Aquarius. But if we just abandon things that might still help benefit us, like for example, knowledge from the past, certain beliefs, So, for example, one thing that is coming up that's still right now because of Cassandra, I believe, still is in Capricorn, is the whole bringing back to the concept of God or Jesus, but at the same time seeing it differently, not from a doctrine or dogmatic point of view, but rather a revision of that, or rather not even revision, but going back and saying that's not what it was supposed to be technically, right? And saying, oh, okay, so Cassandra's bringing that back, and they're bringing back these this wisdom, but also these Cassandra is spirituality. She has visions as well, so that it's okay to bring back the past. It's okay to sometimes have boundaries, which is the Saturn ruled Capricorn. It's okay to sometimes be alone, and it's okay to sometimes tell people what to do. Being a teacher, Saturn is a teacher, so it kind of ties in with Capricorn. That's showing the world that it's like there's wisdom to be had from things that are more also mundane and material, the simple things in life, and it's okay to go for what you want, but at the same time embrace the new. So it's creating a balance here. The challenge is telling us to go, the square is rather representing that. Okay. Eos here is new beginnings, but Eos represents also the old and the new put together, or the opposition of that, or rather the attraction of that. Eos represents not only new beginnings, but changes, of course. I'm going to look at that right here. So beginnings, Eos's number is 5, so I forgot what that meant again. Circadian rhythm, so really going back into the normal patterns of life. Aging, it deals with aging, so it kind of ties in with the whole, because Eos is in 28 degrees. Oh, he's in 28 degrees of Libra. Okay, so, okay. Well, let me go back here. But it rules circadian rhythm, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia as well, light therapy, melatonin. So renewal of contracts, so things that are being renewed. Retirement homes, yes. Relocating unvisited places, old age, YMCAs, possibly. The anti-aging industry, like makeup or like creams, anti-aging creams, those kind of things. Anything to do with false love, any ads promoting false love, fake love, those kind of things. Probably already have noticed that, which ties in really with where Eos is. Eos is in retrograde, so questioning. Maybe people might be saying, oh, this is you like this one, this is who you like, and I like this one. So rumors might be spread about relationships or within relationships. It's like, oh, I love you, blah, blah, blah. So, but because it's square, it's also square Pluto in Aquarius, it's bringing about like either what society might say is true about love or what you say is true about love. So it's squaring Eos, which is like Pluto is very powerful, so it's like it's going, oh, if you want to experience that, go ahead, but bear in mind you're going to experience something deep and intense and traumatic if you don't come to terms with your own experiences or like what you expect, because Eos represents also like probably the fakeness of life, like anything false, or like usually a lot to do with love itself or connections. So it could be like any of those dating apps like Tinder, and people might be experiencing those things in their websites as well. Okay, multi-age websites, cosmetic industries. So going back to the whole website thing, that maybe people might get false news as well. Fake news is probably part of this as well. New editions of anything. So, but it also means that even though it's fake, it means that it's going to revise things are going to be revised, and things will have to eventually change and go from dark to light, or when the dusk and dawn, right? But Eos represents the cycle of dusk and dawn, where the sun rises, sunset, sun rises, sunset. So people might feel like they are challenged by a lot of the false, not only fake news, but also faith, like anything that's falsehood of everything. Okay. But Eos is trine Venus, and Venus rules Eos here. So that means that people will naturally be able to, if they work internally, that people will be like, okay, now I see it. Right? They'll be able to connect with that and see their own value, which is Venus. It's actually, what is that? Semiquincunx? I don't know that aspect. I haven't worked with a minor aspect like that before. It's a black aspect, black dotted lines. I've yet to do those things, so I'm not going to do that right now. Uranus rules Pluto right now, so that's still a big thing. But Uranus is square Artemis, retrograde, and square Mars. So a lot of fighting in the world, like, unexpected stuff. You probably have already seen this. And Artemis is kind of that whole, like, standing your ground, and kind of Artemis is also in kind of like, was it she does the, hold on, instinct, and also to protect. So probably also like police will be involved in this one. I said that earlier. I talked about Artemis a little bit earlier. So hunting, sports centers, birth control pills. Oh, NDE. Okay. People might be fighting to hunting gear, athletics. So in the athletic field of life, like athletes, like athleticism and all that stuff, or scientific community about death, particularly pertaining to death. Is that Artemis? Yeah. Oh, I was thinking about Diana. Okay, so Artemis is a little different from Diana when it comes to astrology here. Limbic system, hormones, genitals. Okay, hypothalamus. I'm not sure. Number is 6 for those who have in numerology. So something to do with hunting, the animal world especially. So people, there might be unexpected wars between, like, veganism is probably involved in this one, because it's farming and like vegetables and earth, things of the earth. Uranus in Taurus. Why is Valentine conjunct Uranus? Expression of love, so love language. Okay. Mutual connection, heart to heart speaks in those, cleansing your purity through and of love. Okay, so because it's conjunct Uranus, it's unexpected changes in how we approach anything that's pleasant and very Taurus, and building communities or buildings itself, creating things, artwork, artistry, music, farming as well, food. So we might get into that. So maybe arguments or different ideas, because it's square Mars. People might argue about the whole, like, well, what's your basis for this? With Artemis here, it's like the animal, so something to do with hunting. So I feel like there's something to do with veganism and or vegetarianism, that it's like, so people might, as activism might be involved in here as well. What did we see from previous charts? Artemis is in, oh sorry, that's the wrong one. 20 degrees Leo. I don't know what that is. I feel like there's activism here involved here. So Eris, 20 degrees. Okay, well it is trine Eris in Aries. So that means that people might be tested. I mean, people might feel naturally tested to question their own eating habits, maybe the way where they get their food from. So it's necessarily about, so probably about either animal rights or us giving the animals their rights and voices. So maybe not necessarily veganism, but pertaining to that. Something to do with hunting though, I'm not really sure. There's this other chart that I kind of just drew up just for fun. I don't have time to go through this because I feel like we've gone way past the time I wanted this to be. Let's see where Moon is connected here. Fomalhaut. Antares is, I believe, conjunct. Hold on. Antares is 10 degrees. Yeah, it's conjunct Pallas Athena and Lilith. Yeah. So Antares, let's take a look at Antares here. What did I find here? Antares is found in the constellation of Scorpius. Okay, on average, the 15 brightest star in the night sky ranges from Antares, which means anti-Aries. Okay. Anti-Aries, which is god of war, rival of Mars. So, breast of the scorpion, Centaurus. According to Ptolemy, nature of Mars and Jupiter. So expanded willpower. Okay, so sextile, Albetus gives Jupiter sextile, but is likely considered the martial and malefic nature of a star. It causes malevolence, destructiveness, liberality, broad-mindedness, evil presages, and danger of fatality, and makes natives rash, ravenous, headstrong, and destruct themselves by their own obstinacy. I don't believe that what they discovered, you can't take it literally, but I would say because of the Mars-Jupiter feel to this, it's like it's going to make us feel more stronger. So Antares here is going to bring in that. Antares is guiding us. Antares is actually one of the 4 archangels, so I believe it's, Raphael. I believe it's Raphael. Either way, I'm sure they're going to forgive me for this one, but it definitely is that whole feel of like Mars Jupiter, where because it's conjunct Lilith and Pallas Athena, it definitely ties in right there, because it's about the war. It's about kind of standing your ground and being committed to that and just going for it no matter what, and just like trudging through it, and if you fall, you get back up. If you fall, get back up. And working with your own inner shadow, which is Lilith, and finding the wisdom in that, which is Pallas Athena. So that's one of the things that is all that I can say about that, because it's what else is that I say here? And Antares makes people tough. Yes, tough, belligerent, and pugnacious. So a lot of inner strength against Jupiter, Mars, right? Maybe a little bit too much sometimes, maybe militant, or maybe headstrong and really steadfast with your beliefs. That could be a fire in Sagittarius as well. Okay. It says here it's violent character. So necessarily mean that there's going to be violence, but maybe that's possible if you choose to believe that. Or violent death here. But it's maybe when that happens, you know what to do to decide to be against that. To kind of like stand your ground. It's like, no, against violence. You feel like you are protected from those violence. That's the other meaning behind it as well. Either battle or by the process of law here. It's funny because it ties in with the Mars thing, but at the same time ties in with law, which is Sagittarius. Now it talks about the people here. Uriel. So Archangel Uriel. So I would say when you pray to Uriel, Archangel Uriel, you get a certain protection that it's like more about how do I become headstrong? Something about that. I'm not really sensing what that is. But okay. So yeah, so that's about it. You have Great Attractor. So Bobby pulls in truth and your personal wisdom from somewhere. And maybe you're drawn to it when you're focusing on that energy. You get drawn into it, and it's because your Great Attractor is one of the black holes, so you get sucked into that. You get really focused on that. Time to do the cards. I want to do the cards today. Alright, so that's a long video. How long is that? 2 hours. That's totally fine. I might break it down though. So. This is like, I'm doing this quietly because it's late at night. I just felt like doing it tonight. I don't know. Oh, 2 that came out right away. This one's popping out. I'm going to do 3. Something about 3 today as well. Alright, so let's take a look. Okay, so the first card pop up. It's upside down. The Lovers. That's funny, it ties in with the Venus we were talking about. And also relationships as well. Magnetism, the Moon. The World, of course, upside down. The World. Third one is the Magician. Hecate coming in. Alright. So with the Lovers, I feel like this ties in with the Venus thing we're talking about. Balance and sexual energies, balance of gender equality, masculine and feminine energies, and listening to guidance and realizing that there's a purpose behind it. That there is a balance. One is looking up to your own inner divinity, one is looking forward. I feel like one is grounded in the 3D, one is looking up, so it's a balance also of connecting divinity with humanity. So because it's 3, it's problem, suggestion, and answer. So the problem is inequality. Equality in not only gender but like duality. Okay. So this is the root of the current issues right now. That makes sense. Okay. All right. And to deal with it, actually let's go with the problems first. What did I say here? So the power of love and how to deal with it. What do you mean by the word love? Okay, seeking wholeness, being true to your values, sexual harmony, and get made in heaven relationship, romantic desire, feeling drawn to another, making a choice, knowing what is right and wrong for you personally, wanting union. Yeah, that ties in with the Pisces energy, plus also Venus, things I mentioned with Eris as well. Of course, Eris, I always include Eris, but the Libra energies as well, with Orcus and Juno earlier. Okay, so that's the current problem, like learning to deal with this whole, like, what is romanticism, what is love in the first place? Is it just earthly love? Is it divine love? Or is it both? Next one is the world. So the way I'm seeing this one is, before I even go into that, your own inner avatar, like I said earlier. Fire, air, earth, water. There's something about the 4 elements here, but I see an eagle. So humanity with its balance with the nature and animals, and coexisting, so the natural selves, which ties in with the Haumea I talked about. And listening to both sides of the argument, because there's just she's carrying 2, what is that, types of wands or something. The animals, or the one below, are facing us directly to find courage. The bull is to kind of stand your ground, while the ego on the left here, on this side right here, is facing to the left against humanity, or rather facing towards yourself and seeing personal freedom, possibly. Let's take a look. So this is how we deal with the problems of inequality, gender, sexual inequality, and all that stuff. Reward for hard work and effort, time for celebration of the self and others, feeling the world is your oyster, traveling both physically and mentally, accomplishing what you set out to achieve, discovering a solution, feeling it at one with yourself and the universe. Okay. So it is union, goes back to what I said earlier about oneness. Was it Daphne and Cassandra I mentioned earlier? Okay, balance in the oneness. Okay, but working hard for it. There's that Capricorn thing I mentioned, plus the Earth. There's that trine I mentioned earlier with the Earth, the 3 Earths, Capricorn, Taurus, Virgo. So patience is part of this too. But celebrating the time with others. So people, even though they might question things, who to trust, it might be time to kind of bring that together. I think that's why the moon and the sun are together in this case. Saturn there, but on the opposite side you have Neptune. It's interesting, right? So, okay, and the magician, as we talked about, was something in this case. I feel there's something else with the magician here, that it's about so as above, so below, right? And trusting in your own wholeness. It goes back to wholeness as well. You got the pentacles, the cups, swords, and wands on the table. Trusting in your inner nature, but also your outer nature. Because you got plants and vines at the bottom, roses here at the bottom, and also at the top there. Ability to manifest, realizing your potential. Knowledge is the key to success, but don't deceive yourself that you know all the answers. Ties in with the Pallas Athena I said earlier, but wisdom, focusing on a goal. So it ties in a lot with what we've been talking about today. So I think that's all for today. I did say a lot, which is fine. It's going to be a long video, which I hope helps you guys. But that's it for today. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.